So, it begins. Dark were the skies and chill was the wind as the land was covered in a veil of malice. Across the hill did ride a dread army of the night, cloaked in mist and fog, prepared to rain down death and destruction upon the land. And the people cried out for a savior, a noble soul to save them from their impending demise. Just as it seemed all was lost, in strode a mighty hero, clad in shimmering metal from head to toe. Wielding a terrible broadsword, he did cleave his foes in twain, smashing their ranks asunder with a righteous fury. And when the day was done, and the enemy strewn across the fields in pieces, the people did turn to the warrior and say, "We shall name this day in your honor, speak unto us your wisdom." Slowly the warrior turned to face the assembled crowd. Lifting his sword on high, he said but one word that day. One man, one Murloc, one giant angry badger. This is Blue Please. It begins now.
Yes, indeed, folks. Welcome to Blue Please, right here on CynicalBrit.com with myself, Total Biscuit. The date today is the 29th of April, 2011. It is 8 p.m. in the British Isles. Some of you might know our country by the fact that we're all flipping out over a goddamn wedding. I never, sadly, had any claim to the fact that our country was smart. No. We're talking about the same country, by the way, that will repeatedly buy newspapers for the sole reason that it's talking about an ex-glamour model that has actually done nothing worthwhile in her entire life. Yes. Those of you in the British Isles know who I'm talking about. Those who do not are probably, just maybe aware of somebody by the name of Katie Price. Yes, another Kate that we can't seem to get our goddamn eyes off of. I have to know why that is. It is kind of sad. But that is the case. People like dumb stuff. But there you go. We will not talk any more else about it, as far as I'm concerned. There was no need, no reason, no rhyme. So, what exactly is going on in this particular show? I shall let you know. It rhymes, oh my god. I was lying when I said there was no rhyme. There is, in fact, several. So, what's coming up the show for you today? Well, conquest points changed to PvP. Everything's been flattened out, much to the disgust of a lot of people, and I had a word with a PvPer, in fact. He goes by the name of Belligerence. You might know him. He's a very highly ranked arena player. He's also part of the game station. So I'm having a discussion with him, and we're going to talk about the conquest points change later on the show. And also from the perspective of a PvE player, why exactly I don't really care if things are balanced between PvP and PvE, and I'm alright with spending longer to get my gear than they have to spend in order to get theirs. Also, 4.2, looking to be a story-driven epic by the looks of it, will be analysing the recent preview content that's come out for this particular set of patches, and it's going to be in regards to the Mount Hyjal restoration as well as the Firelands and the Legendary content, and we'll be thinking about whether or not that's actually enough and if it's a good direction to take that particular patch. Also, 4.2 as well, why 7 bosses just isn't enough, and we'll be talking about the lackluster raid content going forward and the idea of single-tier raiding and small numbers of encounters somehow being okay, and whether or not heroic content is really a substitute for actually having lots of bosses. And your chance to contribute to the show, folks, you can email into themurloc@gmail.com. That is themurloc@gmail.com, with the illusion of choice. Yes, indeed, folks. The illusion of choice, email themurloc@gmail.com. That is themurloc@gmail.com. Now, there will be a guest on next week's show. In fact, there'll be 2 of them. The guys from the Daily Blink are going to be coming on for a half-interview, half-guest hosting segment, whereby they will be discussing various things. We're just going to have a chat, really. Sounds reasonable. I like the Daily Blink. The Daily Blink is pretty much the comic version of what Nubcake News used to be, by the way. So, I like them. I get along very well with them. We share fairly similar views, so we will be doing that. And sadly, people still don't understand that the show is an audio podcast. Why is the video not on? My God, learn to read. I mean, I would perhaps forgive people if it wasn't written on the live stream page. The video is not part of Blue Please. Here are the instructions. I not read. And I consistently wonder why people concern themselves with dumb stuff, when in reality we have people like this. Oh my. Oh my. Oh my. Ugh. Horrendous. Absolutely, completely, and totally horrendous. I swear, some people. Why you no read? Okay. So, what else is going on this week? Azeroth Daily will be coming out a little bit later. That's going to be coming out, hopefully, after the show. Give me about an hour or so afterwards. I've pretty much done the recording. I just need to edit it together, so that should be fine. It's kind of my own fault, really. I decided to get embroiled in an argument on MMO Champion, and it's like, oh, this is like the good old days. Yeah, it's the good old days where I used to get involved in the forums and shout at people. Now it's just on the MMO Champion forum. It was, amusingly, kind of the same thing that we've discussed in the past, and also that keeps coming up, the idea that somehow 4.1 is not a lackluster patch. I don't really want to discuss that all that much on the show, because as far as I'm concerned, it's self-evident to anyone with a working cerebellum. I can't see why anyone can think otherwise. I mean, we had some guys say, oh, well, that's just like your opinion, man. That's not really a fact. yeah, it is a fact. Oh, man. Seriously, have a look at what 4.1 has in comparison to 3, 2, and 1.1. Oh, yes, I remember 1.1. Some guy actually argued that 1.1 wasn't a significant patch. Yeah, you're right, it wasn't a significant patch. It only introduced the first ever raid dungeons into the game and all the racials for every race. Yeah, definitely nothing in that patch whatsoever of worth. Yeah, Molten Corvin and Nixia, definitely not important content right there. Let's not even get started on 2.1. I mean, I'll be honest, looking up until this point, with more and more stuff coming out for 4.2, I'm thinking it's looking like a significantly better patch. It's just they're slacking on the raid content side of things, but everything else, I mean, I like the idea of this whole restoration thing, and I'll be talking about that a little bit later on in the show, although I'm still seeing no Abyssal Maw being announced. Where the hell did the Abyssal Maw go, exactly? Was it some kind of underwater whirlpool? It's a possibility. Is it, in fact, being hidden inside the companion cube? Who knows? Who knows? Whatever the case, folks, I would like to bring you mail time. But since we've actually been off the air for 2 weeks, it's a little bit tricky to do just that. So I'm not going to be able to do that, so I'm just going to do some more talking. In fact, I'm going to talk about this MMO Champion thread, just because it seems kind of worthwhile. So, this MMO Champion thread brought up a whole bunch of different things. It was a nice little hodgepodge of content, and the guy that posted it, sadly, is an Azeroth Daily viewer, but he didn't really express his opinion in the best way. For instance, he made no less than 3 spelling mistakes while attempting to type Total Biscuit, which is a little bit embarrassing, honestly. I would hope that my fans would be a little smarter than that, but every now and again, you do find people that are just kind of awful. I don't know. I think it's maybe the fact that some of my demographic is quite young, so you got 12, 13-year-olds watching the show. They're not the primary demographic for the show, that's 18 to 24-year-olds, as according to the YouTube stats, but still. The issues that were brought up were 4.1, and were also, I think maybe the most important thing that was brought up is the whole love it or leave it argument. That's the worst thing. By far. The worst thing. Why would people have this attitude? The reason that people criticize the game is because they actually really like the game and they want it to be better. Now, sometimes that criticism is completely misguided. But every single time you get a criticism like that, that is the reasoning behind it. It's just a lot of it is kind of rubbish. For instance, you're talking about very subjective ideas of what the game should be. And even the people that demand nerfs actually want the game to be better. It's just their idea of the game being better is not in line with how games should actually work. And we're talking about, of course, risk-reward and the challenge curve. If games don't have either of these things, then they cease to be a suitably challenging product, and that actually turns off more people than it turns onto it. There must be a challenge. People naturally seek a challenge one way or the other, to varying degrees. The idea that somebody should just quit the game immediately if they don't like it is, as far as I'm concerned, logically fallacious. Sure, absolutely. Unsub from the game if you're not having fun. I think that's perhaps the most important thing. But if there are elements of the game that you don't like, and yet you're still playing the game for whatever reason, whether or not it be a social reason as part of your guild, whether or not it simply be down to the fact that you like some elements of the game but not others, you should absolutely raise your voice and let people know exactly what you think is wrong with it. The thing is, Blizzard does listen, and it doesn't even come down to vocal minorities either. If they think something is a good idea, they will actually make the change. The problem is that when they see stuff like, this content is too hard, and then they can back it up by looking at stats that say not enough people have done this content, and that's how they interpret those statistics. And if I'm honest, I don't think that's correct. A lot of the time, I really don't think that's why people don't do the content. I think there are other reasons. And we'll be talking about that, particularly in relation to heroic content later on in the show. But when it comes to expressing your dislike for an element of the game, this is a community-driven game, and it has a very significant community presence, and indeed, as far as I'm concerned, the presence of the community is what causes the game to exist in its current strong state. I don't know if anyone would really dispute that. I think that if you have a look at the amount of different fringe communities that have sprung up around this game, and I don't think that playing WoW puts you in as part of a community, but there are a lot of other sub-communities that gather around the fact that they play World of Warcraft, and that to me is a fairly important thing to bear in mind. If you look at the number and then you compare it to any other game, it is shocking. I think maybe the only game that perhaps has more these days is probably Minecraft, and whether or not Minecraft will actually last as long as World of Warcraft remains to be seen. We'll see whether or not that's the case, but then again, we're talking about a game that isn't even out yet, so God knows what will happen to it. But when you have that much community involvement, when you have entire websites dedicated to hosting the tens of thousands of user interface modifications that are being created for the game, when you have sites dedicated to very specific elements of the game, like there are sites dedicated to one class, you know? There are, and that's kind of terrifying when you think about it. There are multiple sites dedicated to one class. That's pretty crazy. There are massive PvP communities, massive raiding communities. Oh, please. It's kind of terrifying when you think about it. And as a result of that, what you can't do is to throw away the whole idea that it's okay to just disregard people's criticism of the game and sideline it and ostracize it and marginalize it as some kind of butthurt QQ, because that's not in reality what it is. There is some of it, certainly, then there is an element to that, but always the intention is to make the game better in the perception of the player in question. And I think these status quo guys and the White Knights are actually the most damaging element of this community. I really do. If you read that thread, and I can give you a link if you like, actually, I would encourage people not to flame in this under any circumstances, because I think it's a reasonable discussion. I just think that some people are, without question, taking it completely overboard. And this was specifically on the subject of lack of content. So I'll give you a link to this in the channel, if I can find the sodding thing, which I now inexplicably cannot, unless it's been gotten rid of off the forums. That was weird. I mean, I stumbled across it on the forums earlier and now can't find it. I have to wonder if it's been deleted, so, well, maybe it has. Whatever the case, I can summarize it simply by saying it was about the lack of content in 4.1 and the possibility that content patches are actually slowing down in terms of the amount of content they bring. Now, I think that when I said that yesterday, since that was before all of this preview content about 4.2, which is actually looking pretty good, even though it's not actually raid content, I think that you can't really take that statement that I made on, say, yesterday's As of Daily to heart on that basis, simply because circumstances have now immediately changed. Which is cool. There we go. I think I found the thread. Thanks to Novacus for actually providing that one on Twitter. I'm retweeting that right now. And as I've said before, do not take it as an opportunity to flame. For God's sake, try and keep the MMO Champion forums clean. Yes, Renate has just linked it in there. Also, people asking dumb questions in the channel. I'm doing a show. This is not a Q&A. Please, GTFO. So, in that thread, you had so many people coming around and saying, basically, love it or leave it. It's like, well, no. I'll happily unsub, but that does not mean that I don't care about the game. I mean, I haven't played the game in months. Does that mean I don't care about the direction of the game? Hell no. Absolutely not. I definitely do. Because it's a game that I've put 5-6 years into, and you see a company like Blizzard that makes these amazing products, and you see them making missteps, and you know why, but it's the fact that Blizzard is kind of blind to the consequences of what they're doing. I mean, for instance, the badge change system, I feel, is the most, and you can see why they did it. You know, they did it with good intentions. It wasn't just down to, oh, we're just going to reward people. I think there was a element of that, certainly, that we want people to keep playing the game, and the way that we're actually going to do that is to ensure that players continuously get a steady drip feed of epic items, because there's a subset of the player base that cares for nothing but that. What it actually comes down to is that Blizzard wanted to make sure that people who came in late were not stuck outside of raiding. The thing is, there were better solutions. And I think that you've got a lot of people saying, oh, well, you know, Blizzard is always right, love it or leave it, which is wrong. And Blizzard is frequently incorrect. They frequently do things that either upset a subset of their player base or are just plain incorrect to the point where they have to apologize and make changes. We've already seen that, even in this whole PvP debacle, and I think that there's going to be further changes coming in. We'll be talking about that after the break. But I suppose the moral of this particular story is that dissent is a very, very healthy thing. No, not just the games, they're great too, but dissent from authority and actually talking about problems in a mature manner is okay, and people getting upset and overly emotional over it are the worst people in the world. They really, really are. They're the worst people in the world when it comes to helping the game get better. My name is Total Biscuit. You listen to Blue Please right here on CynicalBrit.com. I'll play some Pendulum because, hey, why not? That's the only drum and bass band, as far as I'm concerned, that is actually acceptable for a metal fan to play, because it's kind of a crossover there anyway. This goes by the name of the Vulture. I'll be right back after this to talk a little bit about the PvP changes with everything else. Enjoy.